Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. Kind of. Consider it like a part 1 of 2. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups, and we are snowed in here in North Alabama. It is bitterly cold. There is ice on the streets, and my shop has been closed down for 2 days, which means that I have not been able to get out on the roads back to the shop to grab the rest of my books. So I'm not going to be able to talk about half of the books I was intending on reading today. No Marvel and no other smaller publishers, things like that. I do have DC books, I do have Image books, and I do have one Oni Press book. So without reading everything, I'm not going to be able to give you my pick of the week, because normally we would start with the pick of the week. So I can't do that. I can't even really give you the smell of the week because I haven't smelled all of the comics, and I definitely can't give you the cover of the week because I haven't seen all the covers that I was going to look at for this week anyway. So what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to go through what I did read and give you my brief thoughts. For those of you out there who are not snowed in, here are some of the books that I read and what I thought about them. We'll start with DC. We got a new Hellblazer book, John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America, issue number 1. This is a return of Simon Spurrier and Aaron Campbell to the book. Now, they've done this book before, Sandman Universe, kind of like that Vertigo flavor. It is the version of Constantine that's from the Vertigo book from back in the days, from the Sandman, from the Hellblazer run, from Swamp Thing, not necessarily the one that's from the main proper DCU timeline. And I'm glad that there's a distinction now, at least. I'm glad we can keep getting these more adult, more mature, more complex, and more densely structured stories involving John Constantine. Now, Spurrier and Campbell did an outrageously fun, well, fun's probably the wrong word, but a very good run on Hellblazer just a few years ago. And then they got offered the title, and the title ended, but now it's back. This is continuing directly from that run. But if you haven't read that run, there's a nice bit inside of here where they kind of recap what happened, right? So that's kind of cool, but you can go and get the 2 trade paperback collections out right now. Catch up on this. This is perfect for fans of old school Hellblazer books. If you're liking to John Constantine's character is more like when he's plugged in directly to the DCU, this may not be your vibe. It's going to be a little bit darker, a little bit more melancholy, a little bit more moody, right? But that's the kind of Hellblazer stuff I like, the stuff that I grew up reading. This is reflective of that. It continues that story. The art is absolutely superb by Aaron Campbell. We also, I do believe, have Jordi Belair. Jordi Belair on the coloring, doing a really great job here. Really interesting concepts and directly plugged in to the Sandman reality, and in fact directly plugged into Constantine's early appearance in The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. So John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America, issue number 1. I really liked that one. Then we got Batman, Superman, World's Finest, issue number 23. A little bit of report on the DC paper quality. They still are using the same stock on the covers as on the interiors, but the interiors, the colors are popping a lot more, and the covers on this week's books are just a little bit sturdier than they were last week. So thankful for small miracles here. But Batman, Superman, World's Finest, continuing this Return to Kingdom Come story in which Boy Thunder, who Batman and Superman encountered in an earlier arc of World's Finest, has been flung through the multiverse. He's in the King Come universe. He's actually Magog, and now Superman and Batman are in the Kingdom Come reality trying to figure out what went wrong and how they can fix it. Explosive, bombastic, dynamic, kinetic artwork from Dan Mora. The Dan Mora artwork is astounding in this issue. It is big, it's explosive. I've already said those words. It's superhero action at its finest, especially with those vibrant and bold colors from Tamara Bonvillain. This has become one of my favorite books at DC. It is one of the most solid superhero books out there. A classic vibe with a modern feel. Sure, let's say that. Wonder Woman is here with issue number 5. Tom King's Wonder Woman has been a little bit of a up and down road for me. Didn't really like the first issue, liked the second issue a little bit better. The third issue was alright. The fourth issue was my favorite so far. I really liked that issue. Issue 5, though, does slow up the story yet again. Tom King structurally is doing some interesting things with the books that he's working on, but sometimes it does lead to the books not progressing enough. This is basically them putting together the sovereignty or the villains in this story. They're putting together basically the Wonder Woman Revenge Squad. It's cool. It's got nice structure. I like the characterizations. It's just one thing that happens in this entire book, and it takes a while to get through it, and sometimes it just comes across as a little overwrought. The main story, I am digging. I am liking the things that are being set up here, but it's the execution that just makes it feel like it's moving too slow because it's so pretentiously wordy at times, it seems, and the story doesn't progress forward a whole lot. But there's some interesting things here. Basically, both sides building up their armies. It's a cool issue. I thought it was all right. Then we got Superman issue number 10 from Joshua Williamson, Bruno Redondo, as well as, there's another artist on this one, Caio Felipe. I'm loving Superman. Joshua Williamson understands his character. He understands how to make Superman work for the audience that's reading these comics right now, mostly because we grew up, a lot of us, with Superman cartoons in the 80s, and especially in the 90s with Superman the Animated Series, which was, of course, the follow-up to Batman the Animated Series, the precursor into Justice League, and it was a great interpretation of Superman, just like the Batman Animated Series was, in my opinion, the perfect encapsulation of everything that is the mythos of Gotham and Batman. Superman the Animated Series comes really close to kind of being the same thing for Superman. This has that kind of fun vibe and feel to it, but it never lets go of the weight and seriousness of the situations that what Superman is dealing with. In this one, he's flung in the past, so it's Superman in the Old West. It's fun. It harkens back to a classic day of comics where things like this would happen all the time. A really great story, plus Marilyn Moonlight, a little bit of her origin in there. What a great issue. Then we got Titans here with issue number 7. Titans, this is a tie-in to Beast World, but if you're reading Titans, if you're reading Beast World all together, but mostly if you're reading Titans, this is essential. If you're just reading Beast World and you haven't been plugged into Titans, you can skip this one. It doesn't really super reveal anything major as far as the main story of Beast World, but it is moving forward some of the mysteries that have been laid out in the pages of Titans since Tom Taylor took over this book. It was a decent enough issue, mostly focusing in on Tempest and this new brother, is it Brother Eternity? What do they call him? I think they call him Brother Eternity. Also, Nightwing's a Fox. This is the issue of how they deal with that. So I guess that's kind of important to the overall narrative. So one thing I'm learning about this week's, because let me go ahead and find the Nightwing. Nightwing comes out this week too, 110. This is a Beast World tie-in as well. Man, Nightwing is all over the place. Beast World feels like it's only been going on for like 20 minutes in the DCU timeline, but there's enough side quest submissions that, is this supposed to have been going on for days and days and days, if not weeks? It almost feels like that, but at the same time, it all feels like it's happening so quick in the main title, so I don't know where we lie in. I don't know, it's just weird. It's got a big scale, but it seems like a very small time frame, right? But Titans is pretty decent. Nightwing was a pretty solid issue. I really did enjoy this one. This is them going to try to save Damian, who we recently found out, was it in a Titans backup or a Nightwing backup or a Beast World backup? I think it was in a Night. I don't know. Damian gets infected, turns into a little kitty cat. And there's an interesting story here that just, it's one of those things where it's like, how long is this event taking place? Because if you read just Beast World, feels like it's just happening all at once, all of a sudden. Here, it's like, we've been doing this, we've been living in this world for weeks or something? I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Some of that structure of the event is questionable, but the execution of the book is fine. Then we got Green Lantern War Journal, issue number 5. Philip Kennedy Johnson's doing a really great job utilizing the character of John Stewart, doing something different. Now, this is something that writers have had to do for a long time. When John Stewart was first introduced as Green Lantern, he had a good run there. Then in the 90s, he had a little bit of a run, but then it seems like they never quite know what to do with them, because the more Earth-based lanterns they add into the Green Lantern Corps, into these comics, the less the focus is being able to pinpoint on these characters. So there's other characters right now, like Jessica Cruz, not being utilized at all. Simon Baz, like, not being utilized at all. I'm glad Jon Stewart's being utilized, and in an interesting way. And at the same time, Philip Kennedy Johnson, just like Jeffrey Thorne before him and other writers, he's having to do something to set Jon Stewart apart and make him a Green Lantern, but not necessarily firmly a part of that core. And he's doing some interesting stuff with this Radiant Dead idea that I'm really vibing on, really liking, and a very emotional core to this story that I think is very solid. Then we've got Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. This is just big, cheesy, sappy action explosiveness. That's what this is. If you made a Godzilla Kong Justice League movie, this would probably be your script. It's got some beats that are heavy, that feel like they should have a lot of weight, but the dialogue surrounding it's just a little bit cheesy, a little bit corny. Think things like Michael Bay's Armageddon. Think things like that. This is kind of like being done in the scale, scope, and style of Armageddon. But it's working for me. It's scratching all those itches. The Justice League versus all these monsters from the Monsterverse, Kong, Godzilla, all this stuff's going on. Lots of appearances, lots of like sadness to it as well. I'm really having a lot of fun with this book. It could be better, but it's way better than I thought it would, and way better than it has any right to be. Then we got Jay Garrick, The Flash, issue number 4. Big explainy issue. Kind of putting a new spin on the origin of Jay Garrick and giving us the full proper origin of this mystery villain that we were introduced to back in issue number 1. Jeremy Adams is doing a great job with this one. In fact, all 3 of these new Golden Age books, The Flash, Alan Scott Green Lantern, and Wesley Dodd Sandman, they're all 3 very different books, but I love this exploration with a little bit more detail and a little bit more nuance of DC's Golden Age, especially now that the entirety of the Golden Age has kind of been reinvigorated and even recontextualized in some form or fashion by the recent work of Jeff Johns on Justice Society, and of course everything with Stargirl and the Lost Children. So Jay Garrick, The Flash, really like this one. It's a big explainy issue, but it had a great sense of pace, and it moved along at a really nice, what's another word for pace? Flow. Sometimes I repeat myself, and then I realize I'm repeating myself again, and then I just go with it. Whatever. From Image, we got The Deviant, issue number 3. Crazy to believe that only 3 issues of this thing have come out so far, but all 3 have been masterful. I've really liked this. It's a book about a Santa killer back in the 70s. This dude was caught as the Santa killer, and now in the modern day, there's a dude who was a superhero writer trying to do something a little bit more important. He's investigating this serial killer who was a gay man of the 70s, and maybe the reason why he got caught is because he was gay, not because he was actually guilty of the crimes. So we're getting backstory, we're getting the main story, and in here we're getting a little bit of backstory and a little bit more of some of the other characters' perspectives on the event in the story. Lots of great exploration here. Great moody artwork by Joshua Hickson. Lots of things moving around, and it's just a really solid book, and it's Christmas themed, and when this is all said and done and complete, like by next Christmas, it's going to be a really cool horror story to read during Christmas time that also has a little bit of heart, tragedy, charm, and nuance to it, but the artwork is great, atmospheric, moody, exactly what it needs to be. And I'll tell you what, the smell on this thing is coming strong. This was probably going to get the smell of the week, but you never know. You never know. Phantom Road is here with issue number 8. Takes an interesting twist and turn here in issue number 8. This is a book that I really like, but every time I get to it, I'm like, oh, what's been going on? Oh, they've just been on the road. It's about these 2 people. This guy's a truck driver, comes across this woman. They don't really know each other, but they're in this, like, reality that's, like, offset from our reality, and there's these weird, like, zombie soggy. You remember the soggies from the Captain Crunch commercials back in the 80s? All right, so they're like soggies. That's what they are. 100%. They're like soggies. Those are soggies. Holy crap, Jeff Lemire, those are soggies from Captain Crunch. And the Sog Master, if anybody's got a line on those little toys that were coming out in the 80s, I think they came in boxes of Captain Crunch, if I remember correctly. I remember there being a game, Captain Crunch was missing, all this kind of stuff. I remember Spider-Man ad about it. I was obsessed with that stuff. Anyway, there were like 2 little soggies, a little captain, and like a little Sog Master. If anybody has those, like, just, you know, give me, holler at me. You know, we may have some upstairs at work. Anyway, Phantom Road. people on the run trying to protect this like weird rocky egg thing or something against these Sagis. But it just feels like I keep getting like misplaced from this story. Like I'm like, where are we at? There's other things going on. But then when I read each issue, I'm enlightened. I'm enlightened and I'm enjoying the issue, and there's new revelations, new twists and turns, and I really got to get back and just reread this book from 1 through 8 and see how the flow goes, because it's got a lot of interesting things. And Jordi Belaire's coloring is very washed out when in the other world, but when they're in the real world, it gets very crisp and clean, and that's an interesting technique. I mean, it's not a new technique, but it's an interesting technique the way it's utilized in that book. Our Bones Dust, issue number 2. Look at that Jeff Darrow cover. Just could stare at that all day. Well, I'll be honest, when I first started reading this, and this is a book by Ben Stenbeck, who I absolutely love his art. He was the main artist on Baltimore, the Mike Mignola vampire book that came out after he kind of wrapped up his big epic run on Hellboy. Even though they're still doing Hellboy stories, the main thread of the Hellboy story. When that wrapped up, they started Baltimore. I really like that book. It's an undersung, underappreciated Mike Mignola book, in my opinion. But Our Bones Dust is from the artist of that book, and he's writing it himself. But I'll be honest, when I read this, I was like, I do not remember anything about the first issue. I remember liking the art, but I remember kind of being like, okay about the story, and that was what was going on here. But as I got through a few pages, it all starts clicking back in my head, and I was brought right back into that world. So it probably does warrant me going back and rereading issue number 1 and then checking this one out again. But the issue got me into it. It's a post-apocalyptic world. There's this young lady. She's running around. There's a really sad bit here with some lizards that I really just kind of tore at me for a second. And anyway, I thought it was pretty decent, but I was feeling a little bit disjointed at first. All right, then we got the Scorched here with issue number 25. What a great cover on the Scorched. We got a lot of things happening in the Scorched, but basically the Violator's sister is back, and she's trying to get revenge on medieval Spawn. So you get a lot of throwback stuff, a little bit of a scene back in the medieval times with Violator and Malbolgia and his sister, Violator's sister, and then how that can, like, brings up what's going on in the current timeline. But just interesting, fun stuff, building up to something, but just, for the most part, elaborating a little bit on medieval Spawn, his background. It's always nice seeing Malbolgia again, for sure. Then we got Faceless and the Family, issue number 3. This is the penultimate issue of the series from Matt Lesniewski. I really like this book. Crazy, curvy, Tradmore-esque, wonky artwork with a great sense of shading, pointillism, the artwork, the black and white nature of it, the design, the fluid, tubular nature of all of the stories. And when I say tubular, I mean literally like a tube, not like tubular, but it's also tubular. I love this book. It's got some really great themes that are right there on the surface. Every character is like basically named what they are. So there's Giant, there's Carp, which is short for Carpenter, and there's Faceless. Faceless is a dude who wears like a pipe helmet on his head. He wants a new face. He's in this world that's shaped like a hand. They have to go to the rich area to get this surgery. Why does he need the surgery? Everybody tells him he doesn't need to get it. And then all these other things are going on at the same time. Reaches right into the heart of the characters, right into the heart of the reader, and it does so with exceptionally, exuberantly awesome artwork. So Faceless and the Family. So that's what I read. Still got Marvel, still got Dynamite, still got a few other things to read. But once I do that, we'll do part 2 of this video, and I'll reveal the pick of the week, the smell of the week, and the cover of the week. But to recap, Faceless and the Family is awesome. Scorched was pretty decent. Our Bones Dust was shaky at first, but then brought me right back in. Phantom Road is getting more intriguing and warrants a reread. Deviant has been super solid. Jay Garrick the Flash, really liked that one. Big Dumb Fun. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. Green Lantern War Journal, a really great story involving Jon Stewart. Nightwing and Titans, they're both Beast World tie-ins dealing with Fox Nightwing and Kitty Cat Damian, so that's fun. Superman in the Old West in issue number 10. Great cover on that, too. Really great artwork from Bruno Redondo, by the way. Wonder Woman, my bad. Wonder Woman number 5. Interesting story, but it's taken too long to kind of get there. Batman, Superman, World's Finest, explosive and awesome. John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America. A great continuation of the Spurrier, Campbell, and Belair run from before. So that's what I read. That's what I dug. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom!